Ken Clarke goes out of the Conservative leadership contest. Tonight, this man is seen by many as the leader in waiting. Only 2 weeks ago, David Cameron was seen as the rank outsider in the battle to lead his party. Now, quite dramatically, he's the man to beat. Also tonight, the Yorkshire Ripper hoax tapes. A man is arrested 25 years on. Sniffer dogs are brought in the fight against avian flu. And on trial, Saddam Hussein will appear in court tomorrow, accused of a massacre in this village.
In London, stars and gripes, how the congestion charge has pitched City Hall against the Americans and the Germans.
Good evening. He was the public's choice for the Conservative leadership when the contest began, but tonight Ken Clarke is out of it. In the first round of voting by MPs, he could only manage 4th place. David Davis came top, but his 62 votes were fewer than he'd predicted. It was the younger candidates, David Cameron, a close second with 56, and Liam Fox and 42, who did better than expected. Ken Clarke got 38, and they will now go through, Cameron and Fox will now go through to the second round of voting on Thursday. With his assessment of the results, here's our political editor, Tom Bradby. Tom?
Trevor, I ran in this afternoon just before the vote to a David Davis supporter who was looking, I must say, pretty worried. I said to him, how do you feel it's going? He said, well, look, I've got to be honest, if we get less than 60 votes, we're in trouble. Remember, he was pledged 67. They got 62. I think that's perilously close to that 60 level. Now, the difficulty is all leadership elections are always, as we've discussed before, about momentum. Davis's supporters were saying afterwards, look, people have got to get with the programme. MPs have got to get with the programme. They've got to understand Liam Fox can't beat David Cameron. David Davis is the man who can. But I think, as we said, it's about momentum, and tonight that belongs to David Cameron and perhaps even Liam Fox.
5 o'clock today, and after months of intrigue, the votes were in. As the counting began, the candidates sweated it out. Half an hour later, they took the long walk down committee room corridor to hear their fate.
In alphabetical order, the votes for each candidate were as follows. David Cameron, 56, Kenneth Clarke, 38, David Davis, 62, Liam Fox, 42. Under the rules of the party, the name of Kenneth Clarke will not go forward to the next ballot.
There it was, short, brutal, and for Ken Clarke, a huge figure on the political scene for a generation, almost certainly final. This will surely be his last shot at the leadership. As the news swirled around Westminster, the feverish analysis began. Davis had done worse than expected, Cameron much better, more than ever tonight. He looks like the man to beat.
Well, it's a very good result. It's better than I expected. My team have worked incredibly hard. We've had a very good response from members of the public, from members of Parliament, from party chairmen, from party members.
The question for Davis's team, though, will his vote now implode? Even some of his declared supporters deserted him in the privacy of the voting booth. So will others now transfer to Liam Fox?
Well, we're top of the poll. You can hear me here. We've got the largest number of MPs first choice. I'm very grateful to my colleagues for choosing me. Of course, there's obviously been some tactical voting. It's very important that my colleagues on Thursday give the clearest steer possible to the country who they want to see.
Fox remains the dark horse tonight, but what an extraordinary night it has been for Ken Clarke. In '97, he lost to William Hague, then Ian Duncan Smith, and now he's gone out with the wooden spoon.
I think it sends a message they're looking for a younger leader, probably, but I don't think my age was actually remarkably relevant.
For the third time in a row, the cigar-chomping political big beast has been rejected by the party he loves. It is hard to avoid the feeling the baton is passing from one generation to the next.
So Ken Clarke is out, and with his eviction from the race, the end of his hopes of ever becoming leader of his party. But as our political correspondent Angus Walker reports, he and his supporters can still influence what eventually happens in the contest.
So it's 1 down, 2 to go. Ken Clarke is the first Tory housemate to be evicted. down but not out of the race completely, because although it was a red light, Ken and his 38 supporters are now crucial voters in the second eviction on Thursday.
What we now have to do is to deal with the decision that's been taken, and we clearly have to look at the other three candidates.
And it's this man who stands to benefit.
I shall support David Cameron because I believe that if that's what the party wants, he is the best person to take us forward.
So as the big beast exits the political jungle, he's having his final roar. Although it's been almost a decade since Ken Clarke sat on the front bench, he's never been afraid to push his brand of Tory politics, even if that meant sharing a platform with Tony Blair, launching the Britain in Europe group 6 years ago. And he'll want to ensure he still has an influence on party policy.
I think his experience, his ability, his recognition in the country as a whole will be something any leader will want to draw upon, and his experience they'll want to call upon, and his advice they'll want to take in many, many issues.
So with less than 48 hours before the next eviction, he's no longer a candidate, he's now Kingmaker Ken. Angus Walker, ITV News.
Let's go back now to our political editor, Tom Bradby at Westminster. He's joined by our chief political correspondent, Daisy McAndrew. Tom?
Well, Trevor, we've just been chin-wagging here trying to work out where we are tonight, and I think we're both agreed that David Cameron, I think it's the only conclusion you can reach, David Cameron is the man to beat. Daisy's been pounding the phones to constituency chairmen. What do they make of it?
I certainly have. Well, more of that in just a moment, because earlier today ITV News went to Worcester to ask the Conservative Party there who they would like to see elected as leader. We asked them to show us with a show of hands how many of them wanted Cameron. And as you can see from these pictures, quite startling, nearly all of them, in fact, only one of them didn't want David Cameron. So really quite surprising there. So off the back of that, Tom, today, I decided to call some other constituencies to find out how their chairman wanted to see this election going. And I can tell you that not one of them that I spoke to wanted David Davis to be the next leader. Some of them, a couple of them, wanted it to be Liam Fox or David Cameron. They hadn't quite made up their minds which of those two young men. All the rest wanted David Cameron. And I chatted at some length with a couple of constituency chairwomen who were particularly keen on David Cameron. And I asked one of them, hadn't the whole drugs issue put her off him? And she said, far from it, it had made her keener on him because she liked the way he'd dealt with it. He seemed very dignified, he seemed very strong.
The only thing I think, though, we were talking again about earlier, what can derail David Cameron at this point? And I think the only thing we can see is the drugs issue. Of course, people think he's talking about university. I mean, he's refused to talk about the issue in a blanket way. If it's all about university, I don't think anyone here, and perhaps out in the country, really cares. The only slight worry MPs have, could it be more recent than that? That's the only difficulty he's got to surmount. Back to you, Trevor.
Tom Bradby, Daisy McAndrew, thank you. More than 25 years ago, hoax tapes from a man claiming to be the Yorkshire Ripper baffled police and may have allowed the real serial killer, Peter Sutcliffe, to continue his murder spree. Tonight, a man from Sunderland was arrested on suspicion of perverting the course of justice. Whoever taunted detectives all those years ago had a Sunderland accent. Chris Shipp reports on tonight's developments.
It was the hoax tape sent to police at the height of their 6-year hunt for the Yorkshire Ripper. It is June 1979. West Yorkshire police play the tape to the nation. They believe it is the voice of the Ripper himself.
Well, I'm only catching me now than 4 years ago when I started. I reckon your boys are letting you down, George.
The chilling voice, an accent from the northeast, taunting the detective leading the manhunt, George Oldfield.
We know now that we are definitely looking for a man who originated in the northeast.
And so police switched the focus of their inquiry almost overnight to Sunderland. Linguistics experts even pinpointed the Castletown area of Tyne and Wear. The man, who became known as Wearside Jack, also sent police letters. As a result, detectives scoured the Sunderland area for 18 months. 18 months in which the real Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe, was able to kill again and again. Sutcliffe was even questioned but released, partly because he didn't have a northeast accent. Sutcliffe's final victim was Jacqueline Hill, a 20-year-old student found battered to death in Leeds. Her mother has said Jacqueline might still be alive today if police hadn't diverted their attention to Sunderland. Tonight's arrest comes 24 years after Sutcliffe's trial for 13 counts of murder, when he admitted the hoax tape acted as a diversion, allowing him to carry on with his mission to kill. Chris Ship, ITV News.
The first sign of precautions to protect Britain from bird flu were visible at Heathrow Airport today. Sniffer dogs checked luggage from Romania and Turkey for birds brought in illegally. It comes as the company behind the antiviral drug Tamiflu said it would allow other companies to manufacture it. Our medical editor Lawrence McGinty reports.
It's come to this. Sniffer dogs at Heathrow Airport searching the bags of passengers from Istanbul this afternoon, looking for meat products that might just be infected with bird flu. And the virus is spreading. The latest case here on a small holding in the tiny Greek island of Chios. If confirmed, it will be the first case of deadly bird flu in the European Union.
We have not reached the level of preparedness that we should have.
Here, the government says it is preparing by stockpiling 14 million courses of the antiviral drug Tamiflu. And the manufacturer, Roche, says it will let other companies make the drug under license to overcome shortages. The antiviral drug Tamiflu is now like gold dust. You can't buy it over the counter, but because the government is stockpiling so much, you'll struggle to get it even with a prescription. So scarce is Tamiflu, it's even been offered on the internet auction site eBay and then withdrawn because it's a prescription drug. But the holy grail is a vaccine. Only trouble is that has to be grown in hen's eggs and would take 4 months to make. Now, however, an Oxford-based company says it's devised a new vaccine that could be produced rapidly.
What we're doing is we're planning to build a factory that will produce 120 million doses in 3 months. Now, of course, that takes considerable investment, but we know how to do that.
The idea might not work in time, but unless we can make a vaccine more rapidly, we'll be fighting with one hand tied behind our backs. Lawrence McGinty, ITV News.
The government's done a deal with the unions over pensions to head off a strike by millions of public sector workers. Ministers backed down from increasing the retirement age for teachers, nurses and civil servants from 60 to 65. The CBI said they'd caved in to union pressure. Solicitors for Prince William's girlfriend Kate Middleton have written to the newspapers expressing concerns about her privacy. They say the behaviour of some photographers could amount to a breach of the Press Complaints Commission code. And Portsmouth's newest landmark ran into problems on its opening day. The project manager of the troubled Spinnaker Tower was trapped for more than an hour in an external glass lift. It's the tower's latest glitch. Today's opening was 5 years late and way over budget. In just over 9 hours from now, the long-awaited trial of Saddam Hussein will begin in Baghdad. It's almost 2 years since he was dragged from his hideout in a hole in the ground. Tonight, the former Iraqi leader is said to be calm and confident of his innocence. Paul Davis looks at the charges he faces.
He's charged with crimes against humanity. His accusers would claim he has the blood of millions on his hands. Yet Saddam Hussein will finally stand trial, charged with an atrocity small scale by his regime's bloody standards. It was in 1982 Saddam visited the predominantly Shiite town of Dujail. Publicly he received the usual welcome, but away from the cameras there was an attempt to assassinate him. Shots were fired, but missed. Pictures only recently released show Saddam himself interrogating suspects. 140 people were later executed. Prosecutors will say it was an act of revenge ordered by Saddam himself.
I think they may have chosen the Dujail incident because perhaps the evidence is easier to get hold of. Perhaps it's easier to establish the link between the facts and Saddam Hussein's involvement.
For now, that is the only charge Saddam faces, but he can expect many more to be brought against him. Amongst them is the invasion of Kuwait, where Iraqi soldiers are alleged to have tortured and executed prisoners. The brutal repression of Shiites. Mass graves contain the bodies of people slaughtered in the crackdown. The persecution of Iraq's martial people, their habitat was drained, a way of life destroyed. And he'll almost certainly face charges relating to the Kurdish genocide. A gas attack on the village of Halabja killed thousands in just one day. But it could be months before any of those cases is heard.
The defence is not ready at all. The defence has not even seen the charge sheet. The defence has not been given any information as to what the charge is, who the witness is, what are the procedures.
Saddam, as before, will almost certainly refuse to recognise the legality of the Iraqi court. On the first day of his trial, his lawyers will be seeking a lengthy adjournment. Paul Davis, ITV News.
The markets now, and the index of 100 leading shares fell by 22 points today to close at 5,263. In New York, the Dow Jones ended at 10,285, down 62. Tonight, the pound is trading at €1.46. That's up by almost half a cent. And now, with tonight's sports news, here's Felicity Barr.
Thank you, Trevor. Well, in a moment, we'll have all the goals from tonight's Champions League games. But first, it seems certain that Sky's monopoly of showing live Premiership matches in England is to end. The European Commission today told Premier League bosses that at least 2 broadcasters must share the rights. But the league remain confident of securing a deal that won't harm the domestic game. Here's our sports editor, Tim Hewitt.
As the cameras were lining up for another match tonight, European commissioners in Brussels were preparing to change the face of live football coverage in Britain. 2 years from now, there'll be no Sky monopoly of the Premiership. Its matches will be sold off as a kit of parts, most likely in 5 packages of 28 matches each. That was the proposal the league's chief executive, Peter Scudamore, took to the European Commission. It seems they'll accept, limiting any one broadcaster to no more than 4 of the packages.
Our bottom line remains that they've got to sell the rights in such a way that at least 2 broadcasters get a viable and meaningful share of the rights.
So what will it mean to the armchair football fan? Sky will almost certainly be allowed to bid for the majority of games, perhaps 80%, but some will go elsewhere. The cable company NTL and ITV will provide strong opposition. They've already said they'll pay £170 million for half the games. The BBC also wants a share of the games. Channel 5 is interested. That means for the first time there'd be live Premiership football free on TV. And for the first time, Premiership matches will be shown on the internet and mobile phones.
The Premier League will only lose out if Sky get less than 60 to 70% of games. Under those circumstances, they won't get the money, anything like it, that they're getting under the current live and exclusive contract with Sky. Nobody else could make up that sort of shortfall.
EU officials will give their verdict on Friday. The signs are they'll accept the Premiership's proposals. Tim Hewitt, ITV News.
The Champions League resumed tonight, and it proved to be an historic evening for Arsenal's Thierry Henry. On his return from injury, the striker broke Arsenal's goal-scoring record, previously held by Ian Wright. Henry scored both goals in a 2-0 win over Sparta Prague, taking his total in an Arsenal shirt to 186, and all but securing the club's passage to the Champions League knockout phase. There was disappointment for Manchester United, who could only manage a goalless draw at home to Lille. Paul Scholes had their best chance before frustration got the better of the midfielder. He was shown the red card after receiving 2 bookings. Brian Kerr has been sacked as the Republic of Ireland manager. It follows his failure to guide the side to the 2006 World Cup. And the man at the centre of an athletics drug scandal has been jailed for 8 months. Vincent Conte, founder of Balco Laboratories, confessed to supplying performance-enhancing drugs to many top athletes, including the 100 metres runner Dwayne Chambers. And we have some sad news to end on. The former Fulham and England footballer Johnny Haynes has died in hospital at the age of 71 following a car crash. That's the sport for tonight. Trevor.
Thanks, Felicity. We'll have an update on our headlines and a look at some of the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers in a few minutes. But first, let's link up again with our ITV colleagues around the country to find out the news where you are tonight.
Hello, I'm Joyce Sahaja. This is London Tonight.
The American and German embassies are refusing to pay the congestion charge. They say it's a tax, so their staff aren't paying it because an international convention exempts them from British and other foreign taxes. But City Hall says the charge is a road toll and they must pay it. Piers Hopkirk reports.
They're our closest ally, our brothers in arms, our cousins across the pond. And for decades we've stood shoulder to shoulder on the world stage. But now it appears we're revving up for a diplomatic rift. It's not Iraq, it's not foreign policy. It's not even their insistence on calling this place Leicester Square. It's their refusal to pay the congestion charge. Diplomats here at the US Embassy are claiming the charge doesn't apply to them. Ordinarily it would set them back around £100,000 a year, but since July they've stopped paying, along with the Germans. And Transport for London's none too happy.
It's ludicrous. I mean, the exemptions do exist for residents and black cab users, but from the advice we've got from the FCO, they don't have any legal entitlements.
It's a view shared by other drivers today.
We all have to pay it, so why can't they?
I wish I could do the same, to be honest.
I think if we pay, they have to pay as well.
So why is it that the world's most powerful country won't pay up? I went to the US Embassy in Grosvenor Square to find out.
Well, our country, like yours, operates on the basis of rules and laws, and among those rules and laws are that when we're operating on each other's territory as diplomats, we don't charge each other taxes. And so we don't think it's appropriate for us to pay this tax, as well as we don't think it's appropriate to pay other direct taxes.
This has become, in effect, an international staring contest, and the question is, who's going to blink first? Will it be Mayor Ken, or will it be the Americans and the Germans? The worry is that if neither side gives an inch, this could end up in court, and that would be hugely expensive for Londoners. The nightmare scenario for Mayor Ken is that the Germans and the Americans win and prove their legal exemption, and that, of course, could pave the way for all other embassies to follow suit. Piers Hopkirk, London Tonight in Grosvenor Square.
A severe weather alert has been issued to the capital today with the claim that lives are at risk. There are fears that we could be heading for a repeat of the notorious winter of 1962 to 63, and that's prompted warnings to Londoners to make preparations now to avoid serious problems.
We could be facing a winter as severe as 1962-63. Really massive disruption. And the exact pattern that the Met Office is looking at is that the severest weather would be in southern England. And in particular, that the elderly, those of us that have elderly relatives or perhaps are living next door, we might go up and just look in their loft to see what the levels of insulation are. We could see a quite severe loss of life from hypothermia in a long and severe winter.
The fight against fly tipping is being stepped up in the capital. The government's announced new measures to hit offenders in the pocket. Our consumer correspondent Emma Walden has the details.
We've all seen eyesores like this, hazardous blots on our landscape, often in residential areas, created by the ignorant and paid for by the taxpayer. Well, now the selfish and irresponsible criminals behind fly tipping like this are set to feel the true cost of the environmental misery they inflict.
From now on, culprits like these caught dumping their filthy loads outside people's homes, on playing fields and in the quiet back streets of our boroughs will not only be fined or jailed, they'll also be liable for the cost of bringing the case before the courts.
Police already have powers to arrest people. They came in the summer. The fine's gone up from 20,000 to 50,000 maximum, and the prison sentence has gone up to a 5 years maximum. The new powers that are coming in today will enable local authorities, the Environment Agency and the police to recover the costs of investigating and prosecuting people. I think that'll make a lot of difference when it comes to taking people to court.
And the statistics highlight why it is so important to enforce the law. 1 million incidents of fly tipping are reported every year to Flycapture, the national database, resulting in a clear-up bill of more than £44 million. But of course not all incidents are reported, and it's thought that the true cost could be nearer 100 million. From 2004 to 2005, a quarter of those recorded incidents, that's 250,000 cases of fly tipping, took place in the capital. That's 1 every 2 minutes, costing local authorities and therefore council taxpayers £11 million.
I want the public to be vigilant, to report what they think might be illegal dumping to the police or to the local authorities, so that we can take these cowboys to court and prosecute them and get the cost back to the taxpayer, because in the end it's you and me and the taxpayer who are paying for this.
An avoidable capital cost that the dishonest few are literally dumping on the rest of us. Emma Walden, London Tonight, Lewisham.
More on the weather now. Here's Chrissy Reedy with the forecast.
London weather, sponsored by Topps Tiles. Brightening homes, whatever the weather.
Good evening. So the rain will be fairly heavy in some places tonight, but it should clear by the early hours. And temperatures not looking too bad for this time of year. We've got lows of around 11 or maybe 12 Celsius. A little bit on the misty side, also some cloud around first thing tomorrow morning, but very soon the sunshine will start to break through. But perhaps by lunchtime there will be some showers working their way in across the west of London. And really that sets the tone during the afternoon. It's going to be really a mix of sunshine and showers. Some of those showers fairly heavy and also thundery. A little bit breezy as well tomorrow. Top temperature around 16 Celsius. Blustery showers come Thursday, cloudy and persistent rain on Friday. More rain on Saturday too. I'll see you very soon. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye.
London weather, sponsored by Topps Tiles.
And that's all from us for tonight. Now back to the ITV News and Trevor McDonald. Good night.
Hello again, a reminder of tonight's main news. David Cameron has strengthened his position as the front-runner in the Conservative leadership contest. He was a close second to David Davis in the first MP's vote. Kenneth Clarke is out. A man's been arrested over hoax tape sent more than 25 years ago to Yorkshire Ripper detectives. And the long-awaited trial of Saddam Hussein begins in Baghdad tomorrow, almost 2 years after he was arrested. Time now for a look at the front pages of some of tomorrow's newspapers. The Telegraph says David Cameron's second place has electrified the Tory leadership race and put a real question mark against the campaign of former favourite David Davis. The Guardian says today's vote effectively signalled a generational change of the Tory Guard, with Cameron on the verge of a decisive breakthrough. DFT leads on an apparent U-turn by the government not to raise the retirement age of current public employees in health, education and the civil service. The Daily Express reports that a bizarre loophole in French law will mean that vital evidence about Princess Diana's death could remain secret for a century. And The Sun says that a girl of just 16 has defied odds of 1,000,000 to 1 and given birth to triplets. And that's it tonight. Next on the ITV News channel, after that arrest in connection with the Yorkshire Ripper hoax tapes, we'll have reaction from Sunderland. We're back tomorrow, same time, 10:30. But now from me and all my colleagues here, good night.
Yo, boy, fetch.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by Powergen.
Hello again. The rest of tonight we are seeing rain pushing up from the south, fairly persistent for many places by dawn. Really only parts of northern Scotland remaining dry, temperatures down to 10 or 11 Celsius and winds becoming fresh. Tomorrow that rain becomes increasingly confined to northern Scotland. Central parts of Britain will start very murky but largely dry. Brightening up from the southwest for tomorrow afternoon, but some pretty heavy showers packing in for the afternoon as well. Some of these could be heavy, containing perhaps thunder in the south, but that rain will tend to clear northern Scotland by the end of the day. Temperatures tomorrow to 16 or 17 Celsius at best. Not feeling too bad in the brighter spots, but winds are becoming fresh. And for Thursday, it's very windy, with sunny spells and scattered showers in the south and more persistent rain for parts of Scotland.
Park, hear it. Positive energy from Powergen.
Tonight, for the first time, Frank Bruno is talking openly about his battle